Hey everybody, welcome back to Fallout Equestria. This time we're doing 37.3, the Shadow of the Ministries, Twilight Sparkle. Cause somehow I have no idea how this happened, but apparently YouTube marked this video as watched. Like the red bar, this little red bar was all the way full. So I thought, oh, I watched that one okay already. So I moved on. No. Sorry if I sound a little out of breath. I was kind of just running around the house a minute ago. Ate some spaghetti. I love meatballs. Meatballs are
I
delicious.
groaned.
Ah, fuck! Okay, I got the audio set up properly, so it's going through my headset and not my computer speakers. Okay, back to where we were.
My whole body hated me for still being alive. My headache had ratcheted up to the point where it was hard to think straight, and my right foreleg itched horribly beneath my pit buck. Everything else in my body just hurt. Too much physical trauma in too short a period of time. My body was crying out for me to stop. I'd lost count of how many times I've been shot, beaten, and poisoned at this point. Wounds that would normally take weeks or months to heal were instead fixed as I drowned myself in potions of magical healing, letting them mend everything and then throwing myself right back into the fray. Pain had become as much a companion for me as my friends had. But these things, the broadcasters, the pink cloud, they were so much worse. They tore me apart in ways a bullet never could, attacking everywhere at once, attacking my magic, attacking my brain. Even with potions of healing and restoration, I couldn't help but feel that deep and permanent damage was being done. I wasn't going to live to a ripe old age. One day, everything I'd been putting my body through would catch up to me, and I would die young. Part of me wanted to quit while I was still ahead, but every part of me knew that I could never quit. Quitting was surrender. I couldn't even rest, as much as I knew I should. Every day I rested was a day that others whom I could have saved would die. If I'd rested even an extra hour, the young zebra would have been slain by those bloodwings. If I'd rested an hour less, I would have been able to save his friends as well. Pain I could handle, as long as I was alive and still able to make a difference. I wondered if this was how Steelhooves felt.
I don't know.
I had saved him. He hadn't been moving, but I knew he couldn't be dead. The lightning may have rendered him unconscious or knocked his armor spell matrix offline. Either way, if I hadn't gotten to him, the alicorns would have. The broadcaster wouldn't have saved him, although it definitely bought him time. Thank the goddesses I had at least managed to levitate the liquid pink sludge away before I had inhaled any of it. Thank Celestia and Luna that I'd drunk healing potions minutes earlier, and didn't fall into that pool with open wounds from those Canterlot dragon hatchlings. I couldn't tell if I was being supremely lucky, or supremely unlucky. And now that I thought of it, I'd come out of this with a new weapon against the alicorns. Granted, it was one that was indiscriminately lethal, but it had to be possible to use the broadcasters to my advantage. But first I needed to... Where the hell was I? Calamity? Velvet? I was alone. Steelhooves. Pyrelight.
Ah, you fucked.
Completely alone.
You fucked.
I was laying on a soft cushioned bed. I tried to sit up, and a thunderclap went off in my pounding head, knocking me back down and leaving tears in my eyes. I brought up my eye sword Sparkle, not remembering to turn it off, and scanned the medical warnings. I needed to drink a super restoration potion, possibly several, and painkillers. I certainly needed painkillers. But I didn't have any. I didn't have anything. No weapons. No supplies. I vaguely remembered dropping our weapons and supply packs when I went chasing after Steelhooves. I groaned at the thought of little Macintosh laying abandoned out in that field. It felt like I'd lost a friend. Hopefully Velvet Remedy had grabbed everything before following us, but doing so would have taxed her limited telekinesis, and
Yeah,
I
she
couldn't
needs to
imagine her
work on that
prioritizing
shit.
weapons when she had Steelhooves to care for. But, wait, I wasn't wearing my utility barding either, and I definitely didn't strip down before my unintentional swim. I felt truly naked as I realized I didn't even have my hacking tools.
Ah, the alicorns, they're having
Looking
their
around,
way with you.
I was in a library.
Lucky bastard.
An Athenium. And a big one. Bigger even than Twilight Sparkle's Athenium and Ten Pony Tower. I remembered the recording that Amach had played for me, Rarity talking to Twilight, mentioning something of sending ideologically incompatible books to the Ponyville library. If only I could spare the time to just sit and read. Ah, you are awake. The voice startled me. It was Urbane, the voice of a gentle stallion. I looked around, wincing as the pain in my head amplified with the sudden movement, blurring my vision. Good morning, madam. Morning. Oh, goddesses, I'd been asleep all night, and no pony had found me? This was unspeakably bad.
Yeah.
Who are you? I asked the mysterious stranger. Where am I? Wordsworth at your service, ma'am.
Oh, hey, Wordsworth. Hey, how's it going, buddy? Oh, I like you. I liked Wordsworth. He was fun. Anyways, that was the guy, the robot butler from the third game, right? The one in the house who could get in Megaton? Oh, I don't remember. Anyways, I'm so confused because my brain is still on the next chapter rather than this one. So I'm like, oh, man, I'm all fucking, I don't know what the fuck's going on.
You are in Twilight Sparkle's Athenium, ma'am. I blinked away tears, turning my head more slowly as I began to mentally hone in on the source of the voice. There he was. Or it, rather. A mechanical owl. A much fancier version of the one I'd seen following the merchant who had set up in the remains of Trixie's cottage. I remembered fighting owls similar to this one in the Ministry Morale Hub in Manhattan, too. But this one looked far more sophisticated, and far more lovingly crafted, down to the bronze filigree of feathers. What are you? At least this mechanical owl didn't seem hostile. Wordsworth, ma'am. Twilight Sparkle's junior assistant. How did I get here? Well, ma'am, the owl said, sounding embarrassed. When a mare and a stallion love each other, or have made certain binding contracts...
Oh, you little bastard!
I interrupted quickly. Into this room, I mean. The pony in the back of my head was blinking. Certain binding contracts. But then, this was Canterlot, home of royalty and nobility. You were teleported here, ma'am. Security protocols. The ministry is under lockdown. All visitors and staff are teleported to their proper areas, and intruders are remanded to secure containment areas. Cells, he meant. The itching under my pipluck was driving me crazy. Further questioning revealed that the lockdown had been running constantly since the environmental catastrophe over 200 years ago. Furthermore, all the teleportation zones were inside the ministry building, but Wadsworth couldn't tell me where any of the others had been sent. Nor could the owl give a satisfactory explanation of how I had raided teleportation into Twilight Sparkle's private library.
That's a good question.
I got the sense that the security system wasn't functioning quite the way it was supposed to.
Or maybe it is.
Degraded under century.
Like, oh god, now I'm theory crafting in my head. Cause like that was, no, cause like, okay, no, we know that Twilight Sparkle's mother and father didn't go into the vault. We know that, and this is before her brother and Cadence were a thing, like in the show. So K-Cat couldn't include them. So I don't know. Like I had a quick idea that given her immense power of magic around levitation, that maybe she's related to Twilight, but no, cause like
trees of continuous operation. I was probably lucky I hadn't been teleported into a bookshelf or
Applejack's descendant. Cause Applejack was in the vault. Applejack was pregnant, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. I think I am. They had a kid, and then the magic detected Applejack's bloodline in her, so it automatically teleported. Okay, yeah, I'm calling it. Lil Pip is Applejack's great descendant. And thus, Stillhooves.
a wall. And what about my clothing? All foreign objects bearing trace amounts of toxins were teleported to sanitation. I really hoped that didn't mean incineration. I would like them back, please. Certainly, ma'am. Wadsworth responded pleasantly. Sanitation has been completed. They will be returned to the wardrobe immediately. Another fear shot through me. If this magical security system stripped me of my armor, then would it try to strip Steelhoove's armor off of him?
Ooh!
Or could it recognize something melded to him as integral? That was, assuming Velvet Remedy was able to get him to the safety of the Ministry building. My mind conjured the alarming image of Velvet running into the Ministry, levitating Steelhooves behind her, only to be teleported away, leaving Steelhooves helpless outside on the doorstep. If he was inside, and alive, for those definitions of alive that include Canterlot ghouls, then he was separated like the rest of us. My friends could be anywhere in the building. Again, I remembered that they had all night to try to find me. The fact that they hadn't most likely meant they were in bad shape. I moaned and tried to sit up again. My EFS was still flashing health alerts to me. I lifted my pip-buck to check the auto-map, wishing all my friends were pip-bucks so I could just locate their tags.
Also, I am immensely sad that this guy apparently isn't a companion. Because he's not in the next chapter, which would have been fun. Oh, I kind of like having this guy, this classy owl around.
Of course, that's exactly the problem that got me into this whole mess a month and a half ago, wasn't it?
Can you imagine if this was an actual video game and it didn't have a companion limit? Like, can you imagine what it would look like from an in-universe perspective? Because you know how players are. We would gather the most weird group of like, if we weren't limited by karma or a companion, even if it's a companion limit of 6, can you imagine what the crew would look like? You got steel hooves, you probably get some kind of raider pony, you fucking bring along, you definitely be bringing along this guy if he's a companion. It would be the weirdest bunch ever. It would look so weird in universe, and it would be amazing.
To my foreleg and stopped breathing. I wasn't wearing my pip-buck anymore. Where the metal device should stop and my flesh should start, they didn't. Instead, they melded seamlessly into one another. I felt sick looking at it. I had been so casual to admit the possible danger before, but now that it actually happened, I felt a sense of violation and loss that I couldn't explain.
It's not like you lost your fucking leg. Okay, so I told you guys before, I'm something of a transhumanist, and if ever given the chance, I would totally... Like, it'd have to be continuous consciousness. I believe I said that before, but, like, it would have to be a straight shot from my meat brain to the computer, like, no blacking out or anything. And if that wasn't guaranteed, I'd just put my brain in a robot body. You know? I would bet the flesh is weak! Hail the Mechanicum! Yes. The Omnissiah protects.
I wasn't me anymore. I dropped back onto the bed and curled up, crying. Wadsworth, I whimpered several minutes later as I tried to fight back the hollow feeling in my heart. I need medical supplies. Any painkiller, healing, and restoration potions you can give me. You would not prefer to use the autonomous healing booth, ma'am? The what now? Okay. Sure. Where is this healing booth? Never again. I felt better physically than I had in weeks. Psychologically, I was shaken to the point of collapse. The healing booth was a solid metal tube, barely bigger than a pony. Stepping into it had been like stepping into my own coffin. The air had been stifling, even before the door slid closed behind me, plunging me into darkness. I had never felt claustrophobia before. If anything, I was prone to sudden onsets of agoraphobia. But in that metal casket, in that absolute darkness, with the sounds that horrible thing made. And then I started to feel magical energies probing me, washing over me like some sort of slimy alien massage from an invisible and horrible creature.
Kinky!
Never ever again. Even though my body felt better, I knew I would have nightmares for weeks.
Oh, fuck off.
I could already anticipate waking in cold sweat.
You've seen way worse.
Being trapped endlessly in that autonomous healing station. It had worked perfectly as it was supposed to, and yet manticores couldn't drag me back into one if I was at the edge of death. I shuddered to imagine the horror one of those things could inflict if it wasn't functioning properly. If it malfunctioned or suffered degradation from the cloud. I felt myself shiver. The walls were covered in soft, velvety cloth, burgundy in color with sparkling accents, that gave the hallway a rich, luxurious feel. Oil paintings hung on the walls. I passed a spot where a large oval of darker cloth betrayed the removal of what had once been a portrait. Ahead of me, the hallway ended in the door marked Spell Testing. Somebody had scrawled the words, Spell in a Box, on the door in what looked like dried blood. At the end of the X,
That's
the
weird.
blood streaked down to meet a dark stain on the floor. Oh, that's not a good sign at all, I muttered to myself. I was appropriately creeped out. As I approached, I could faintly hear the hissing sound coming from behind it, like 100 dying snakes. I stopped, psyching myself up, taking deep breaths, and opened the door from a distance with my magic.
Why?
Through it, I could see another door at the far end of the laboratory. One more deep breath, and I broke into a run. I galloped through the doorway into the lab, my ears filling with the sound of static. The headache that the sealing station had rid me of returned with a passion, accompanied by a familiar pressure in my horn. I didn't have a firearm with me, so there was no way to take out the speaker. I just had to get through the lab and out of its range before it could kill me. Blood began to tint my vision as I reached the opposite door. It was locked.
You should try
I
that.
telekinetically fumbled at the lock, the pain in my horn escalating, the deadly effect of the broadcaster tearing at my brain. I'd spent nearly an hour in the healing station, and for the first time since leaving Tenpony I had actually felt very healthy. I had been allowed to enjoy that sensation for less than 40 minutes. I unlocked the door and pushed it open, stepping out of the lab and outside the speaker's kill range. I panted, leaning against a rail, blinking away blood and tears. Then I looked down into a grand hall lined with sweeping staircases. Below me was a fountain similar to the one in Homage's foyer, only the statue here was of 2 identical unicorn mares frolicking. On the walls of each side were oil paintings, including a royal portrait of a smiling green-coated unicorn mare with a darker green mane. Hanging opposite was what appeared to be the same mare, only with colors of her coat and mane swapped. "Velvet?" I called out. "Calamity! Any pony home?" My voice echoed in the stately and empty corridor. At the end of the grand hall, in the crux of multiple stairwells that spread out like butterfly wings, was a very important-looking high-arched set of double doors flanked by unicorn busts. I was unsurprised that they were locked. I was very surprised when the moment I started to pick the locks, 2 magical energy turrets had dropped down and started shooting at me. I was immediately thankful that my armored utility barding had been returned as I spun and dove over the railing of the nearest stairwell, catching myself at levitation as soon as I was behind cover. I supposed I should consider myself lucky that my barding hadn't
happened
been
to the
submerged in the
owl?
pink pool long enough to fuse to my body, and that my hacking and repair tools had likewise not been fused together, or otherwise warped into uselessness. Having my pip buck melted to my arm was a brutal enough blow, and I had never wanted to take it off. Yeah, that would have made my relationship with Homage really difficult, My Little Pony teased. I shushed her in annoyance and turned my focus to unlocking the door from safety. It was proving a tough lock, but I'd faced one tougher already today. I saw a purple flash from above me and heard a crackle. This door had magical defenses beyond just the turrets. If I had been trying this with my trusty screwdriver and bobby pin, I would be in a bad state. Click. Yes. I eased myself to the floor, focusing my attention on the fountain. The glow of my magic washed over the pooled water. I lifted the water into the air and used it to shield me overhead as I galloped back up the stairs. The magical energy turrets spotted me and started to fire, each shot evaporating part of my shield in a puff of steam. By the time I got through the door, there was barely enough left to fill a wastebasket. I was so thankful there weren't more turrets waiting inside. Instead, I found myself in what I quickly deduced was the head researcher's office.
And there
Bookshelves,
aren't
filing cabinets,
turrets in there?
tapestries, arcane
Sloppy.
spellwork tables. The room was laid out symmetrically around a carpet with an intricate star pattern of alternating colors. 2 rather impressive desks faced one another, with oil paintings of the same green ponies hung on the walls behind them. Not portraits this time, but full paintings which allowed me to see their matching cutie marks, spiraling magical sparks intertwined with each other. On each desk sat a terminal next to a glass placard with a name sealed inside, made out of sparkling glitter. Gestalt and Mosaic. Trotting around the desks, I spotted a weapon display case and several ammo boxes.
Those two are sending off all the evil signs. Like, they got the fucking giant oil paintings of themselves. They got the kind of freaky office. Like, a lot. They're just sending off a lot of the evil vibes, you know?
Inside the display case was a magical plasma rifle and a multi-gem magical energy shotgun.
Steal them!
The latter reminded me of God's gun. It took me less than a minute to make them mine, though. I was tempted to run back upstairs and shoot the damn death speaker. I wasn't very good with magical energy weapons, but I was sure I could take out a stationary target at close range. Moving to Mosaic's terminal.
Okay, so that's something I never understood about the games, that I was thankful when they added in the whole aim down sights. It's just a gun. It has sights on it, and it has a trigger and handle and stock. So, like, what the fuck? Now, no. When they introduced the repair feature and the degradation of items, and what would have been interesting if the guns and energy weapon stats were instead for repairing those. Like, if you didn't have a good energy weapon skill, they would degrade faster and you had a harder time repairing them because you didn't know how. But making your shots, that doesn't make sense. You know? Whatever. Wrong button.
I drew out my tools and began to hack into it. Mercifully, the pink saturated water that bound my pit buck to me did not seem to impair its functioning.
Thank God.
Stable-Tech didn't fool around when they made pit bucks. The devices had the durability somewhere between steel hooves and a soul jar.
That's a disturbing implication.
Velvet? I asked as I pushed open the door I had just unlocked. The chamber inside was pitch black, and my voice echoed off walls both far and strange.
Little Pip?
A voice called back from the darkness, sounding weak and relieved. A light flared, illuminating Velvet Remedy's horn, then her eyes, mane, and tail. Her charcoal coat seemed to blend into the void around her. Over here. I lit up my own horn, guiding her to me. She got up shakily and trotted quickly towards me.
Thank the goddesses.
I don't
She
trust
whispered
it.
as she reached me, nuzzling my face.
I was trapped here for so long. Alone. Trapped.
She'd said that twice. I didn't need explanation.
I don't
My lovely
trust it.
songbird friend had once again found herself caged and alone. She was trembling.
It's okay, Velvet. I'm sorry it took so long to find you. What happened? Where am I? Is Calamity okay? Is Pyrelight? What happened to Steelhooves? I had him right with me.
I lifted a hoof to her muzzle, quieting the flood of questions. Then I wrapped her in an embrace. I wasn't surprised by how she folded into it. I was surprised how quickly she regained her composure, though, pushing me away.
Thank you, Little Pip, but the others are who are important right now.
I nodded and began to fill her in. Thanks to the terminals of Mosaic and Gestalt, I had a pretty good idea of where every pony was now. Velvet Remedy had been trapped in one of the megaspell casting chambers that filled this entire floor.
Oh, that's not
Steelhooves was
good.
probably in the Arcane Technologies research lab 2 floors below us. Calamity was somewhere in the basement, which included prisoner containment, ministry security, high security storage, and, incongruously, the ministry's kitchen. Pyrelight had never been registered as entering the building. Either she had never gotten inside, or the security system had a phoenix-sized hole.
Probably that.
Something
the
had
Phoenix-sized
apparently
hole.
gone seriously wrong in the basement. All the security systems had been rerouted to the terminals of Mosaic and Gestalt, and communication with the basement had been severed. The Unicorn Twins had not only been the head researchers for the Ministry of Arcane Sciences in this hub, but for the Ministry as a whole. It appeared they were regularly left in command of this Canterlot hub, particularly while Twilight Sparkle was away at the Ministry hub in Manhattan. As best I could tell, they weren't actually in the Ministry when the lockdown started, but I was able to lift it by issuing simultaneous commands from both of their terminals.
Yeah, that
Thank you
sounds
again,
right.
telekinesis. As I finished telling Velvet Remedy what I knew, she looked at me curiously.
Why didn't you have Wadsworth send you all of our equipment?
Yeah.
I blinked, then face-offed.
Oh, because I'm not a clever pony.
We had to find sanitation as well. Damn it, this just got worse and worse.
Can't you just go back to him?
Well, why don't we run up and ask him before heading down farther?
Oh, well, that would probably be easier, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I call this shit!
I dropped everything I was floating except for the 2 magical weapons and dashed into the lab, the static doom of several broadcasters ripping apart my head and driving spikes into my horn. It was a repeat of 3 floors above, only this time I had a magical shotgun. I spun, looking around for speakers, radios of skeletons with broadcasters attached to their civilian model pip-bucks. As I found one, I fired at the pip-buck-clad foreleg of a unicorn skeleton. The short-range multi-blast of magical energy turned bone and broadcaster to slag. One shot missed the table radio completely, hitting a chemistry set 3 tables over, causing the explosion of glass and colored steam. The second slagged the radio, killing its lethal output. Still, static. One more. My vision was red. I could feel blood trickling down my ears. Grenades were going off inside of my head. I spotted the second broadcaster and lifted the multi-gem magical shotgun, pulling the trigger.
And that's why I'm ending it tonight. I have to go to bed now. Good night, everybody.